some of the things that we're going to be discussing here are, so we're going to talk about the facts and the use cases. We're going to go through the licensing models with Symphony and how that ties in to the ALPR analytics. We're also going to break down the analytic engines and what's included with the core versus the ALPR ARH engine. We're also going to talk about the differences between the two, the ARH engine and the core ALPR, and the benefits and maybe some of the drawbacks between both. We'll also go through the installation requirements, which is a fairly critical component of ALPR, and then we'll go into the live demonstration of the ALPR so that you can see the alarms coming through and how to manage lists, add plates, search plates, etc. So here we are about the facts and the use cases. We are camera agnostic, so our ALPR engine does not require a ALPR specific engine. And what I mean by that is that you could use a camera that has a 720p or greater resolution and is giving you a minimum of 32 pixels on the license plate for Latin characters. Non-Latin characters are 40 pixels. They're a little bit greater in the requirement. But again, 720p or 32 pixels on the Latin characters as your target. So again, you could use a standard off-the-shelf box camera or bullet camera or even any other camera that you have in order to grab license plates. There are some other facts that you need to know about it, is that we're not a high-speed ALPR engine. We have maximum speed tolerances of about 20 miles an hour or 30 kilometers an hour. Okay, so we're more of a lower speed solution, and you'll see what some of the use cases are here as we progress to that. We do have an intuitive web configuration, so it doesn't take a terribly long time to set the ALPR engine up. You turn it on and make some calibration settings, which we'll show you how to do here later on in the presentation. And then you're off and running and grabbing license plates. So it's a fairly simple engine to use, and it's fairly widely used in the fact that you could use it with any manufacturer's product. So some of the use cases that we have are parking solutions or slower speed traffics. As you'll see here, we have one that's running in a turn lane on a city surface street. So those are the ideal situations for our ALPR license plate recognition analytic engine. You could also use it for automatic gate opening and processes in industrial areas, or what we like to call whitelisting. And you can also use it for alerting of suspicious or stolen license plates and blacklisting, or creating a customized list that you want to alert an alarm off of. One of the use cases that I've been engaged with is a large university medical center in Southern California. They've got 13 channels of our license plate recognition deployed at their facility, and they're using it to increase the scores for their hospital because of parking arrangements. At one point, the parking arrangements were quite disorderly, and employees were parking in the attached parking garages to the hospital, forcing customers and patients to have to park in the remote parking lots and then hike into the facility to get care. So management said this is unacceptable. We need to increase the available parking spaces that are attached. And they did that by receiving alerts and notifications for the employees that were registered in the list, and we're notifying the on-premises guards that an employee is parked in the incorrect parking structure, and gave them a warning notification, and then would cite them following. So within about a week and a half or two, it ended up clearing up their issue, and their scores increased for that university's medical center. So that's just to give you kind of an idea of where you could potentially use these ALPR engines. So I want to talk a little bit about the licensing model, because sometimes it's a little bit confusing, and customers don't know where they can apply the ALPR engine for license plate recognition. So we have 3 different models in Symphony. The very bottom of this diagram shows you that standard licensing only gives you a single server per site. Okay. As you increase to the professional license, you gain capabilities, and that is you can have multiple servers per site showing up as a single server farm. You can also do integration support, so card access control, I/O. You can integrate to our perimeter intrusion detection products into Symphony, but that does require the professional license. And when you scale out to an enterprise, you get high availability, failover redundancy, fault tolerance, and you also have the video wall feature built in. So what you see that's not a functional component of this 3-block diagram on the left is you have 4 additional components that you can bolt on or add on to these licensing models. The maintenance and support, video analytics, which is primarily what I'll talk about, centralized cloud management, and health monitoring. So you'll notice that the video analytic, it's not specifically attached to an enterprise license, which in older versions of Symphony it was. This is now an a la carte feature. So if very quickly you want to get up and running, you could pay $100 MSRP for standard license. You could pay the cost for the video analytic and bolt that directly onto the standard license. So it's a very economical solution to having a license plate recognition system running at your facility. And again, that video analytic, as you see here in this diagram, can be bolted on to any of our licensing models, standard, professional, or enterprise. So what are included with the analytics? There's 2 different analytics that we have for LPR. One is our core analytic, and you'll see as a part of the core package, you receive all of the analytics that Senstar Symphony has to offer, excluding facial recognition. So you get indoor and outdoor people tracker, left items, automatic PTZ, and those analytics are included when you buy the ALPR engine with core analytics. If you do buy the ALPR engine that is the ARH engine, and we'll start to define what the difference is here on the next slide, you miss out on a couple of the analytics that you get with core. So there's a minor difference in the feature sets that you get from an analytic engine standpoint. With core, you get all of it. With ALPR, you miss out on PTZ auto tracking, left remove items, and crowd detection. So here's the difference. There's 2 ALPR engines that we have. The first is an OEM's model, which comes in a 4-channel block or an 8-channel block. Those blocks require dongles. The 4-channel block is a USB hardware dongle, and the 8-camera block is a full-height PCI capture card that's inserted into a server. The nice thing with the ALPR OEM version is that you do have region detection, and what that means is I can define plates from my home state, which is the state of Idaho. I could distinguish what's from Wyoming or Montana, Oregon, and Washington, my surrounding states. It's also globally supported. So you have regions that are throughout the world. So you could have one where Tom's at in Spain. You could have Germany. All of these regions are supported and identifiable within the OEM version. The other efficiency with the OEM version is that it does decrease the CPU requirements, and that's because some of the processing is offloaded onto that USB dongle. So those are some of the benefits of the OEM version. Now, comparing and contrasting to our core LPR, which is an ALPR engine that Senstar designed and developed in-house, this comes as a part of the core package, so it's inherently a lot less expensive, and it's a single channel license every time you purchase it. So you don't have to buy 4, even if you're only using 2. The other benefit is there is not a dongle required. So if you're in a virtual environment, you may not have to map USB ports to your servers. So that's an added benefit. The downfall is that there isn't region detection. It's just a standard character recognition, and so it's just ingesting all characters and plates. So you're not able to define states and countries that the plates are from. And that it only supports Latin characters compared to the OEM version that supports all characters globally. And it is a bit more intense on the CPU. It requires a full core of CPU to process that analytic engine. So again, there are 2 different use cases for these typically, and our sales engineering team is more than happy to help you diagnose what is going to be best for your specific use case. Okay, so now that we've gone through that, let's get into just a little bit of the installation requirements. This is very, very important. You'll notice in this diagram, we've got 2 approach angles. From top to bottom, you cannot be greater than 30 degrees approaching to a plate. And from left to right, you cannot be offset more than 15 degrees. We highly recommend that you give us as direct of a shot from your camera to a license plate as possible for the best accuracy. Okay, so these are some of the tight tolerances that we do have. You'll also notice there's 2 examples, a good and a bad example of wrapping the characters with our plate boxes, our plate frames. The 2 on the top, you'll see the characters here are fully wrapped within this green rectangle, the top and the bottom of the characters and the right and the left. If that's how you've deployed this and you've marked it, you're going to be very successful. If you're trying to wrap the entire plate and you're not wrapping just the characters like the examples on the bottom show, you're going to miss all of your plate detection. So again, this is something that the sales engineering team is happy to help set up and show you how to best utilize our ALPR engines. But I do like to show it here just so you understand that we do a single line of character recognition. The top plates, the stacked plates, this TC7924, will only be reading 7924, not TC. All right. So now that we've gone through that, let's get into the live demonstration, the meat and potatoes. So here we are with the Symphony Client. So Symphony Client, for those that attended yesterday, thank you. And this is the same display that we've been using here. In this main screen, we have a loop video file of license plate recognition running. So there's a couple of things before you get into actually being able to grab plates and lists and alerts that I want to show you, and that is to manage the license plates. So again, I'm going to reference up here on the very top my main menu banner. There's an LPR button, which looks like a vehicle, and it has a drop-down arrow. So what we're going to jump into is the third option, which is the Manage License Plates. So in this Manage License Plates window, you have the option to do a lot of different things. You could go through the plates, and by double-clicking, it'll pull them up. So you could say, yep, that's the plate I want to manage, and I want to maybe potentially put it in the list. But what's really important here are the buttons down on the bottom. You have an import and an export button. Now those buttons do allow you to do a batch import of license plates. But the thing that I do like to point out is that it's best if you start to manage your lists first, which is all the way over here on the right. Without lists, you're kind of stuck, and you'll see what that represents when we get into creating a rule as well. So the buttons on the bottom, import and export, you can add a plate one at a time if you like. I prefer bulk importing. You can also edit the plates from here if you prefer. You could delete a selected plate if it's not of reference anymore for you. But let's go ahead and jump in here, which is our key component that is fairly critical that I always recommend that our customers do first, and that is creating lists. So these lists here are going to be available for you when you're creating a rule. So if you've created a rule before you create a list, you don't have anything to necessarily alert off of except just every license plate. So this is why I like to create my lists first, because now when I move to creating a rule, you'll see that these two lists are available for me to select what I want to alert an alarm off of. Okay? So this is managing lists. And as you saw, it's extremely simple. You type in a name that has a reference to you, and then it'll show up in the list and become available for you to utilize in your rules. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and move away from this for just a second. So let's jump into the server configuration for the ALPR. So let me move this over here for you. Get this going full screen. I'll log in. And I'm going to select the camera that I have my core LPR engine running the loop video file on. You'll notice on the left-hand side is where I can quickly navigate to my add-on section, which is, as I showed you, the add-on for LPR. And I have turned it on, and so that gives me the configuration option, which I'm going to select. So now that that is been selected, it opens up the configuration window for you. So you can analyze the resolution. Like I said, anything over 720p is great. If you have higher speeds in the 20-mile-an-hour mark, you'll probably need to increase it up to about 10 frames. For slower speeds at, you know, a gate barrier entry and things like that, you can get away with 3 to 5 frames per second. So again, no region because I'm using my core LPR. And then I just go around like I do with my other analytics and define what area I want to start detecting the license plates in, which is highlighted here by this yellow blob that's on the screen. So now just down below, I've got also plate detection. You'll see this green box, right? And this green box is what I showed you in the configuration slide and how it has to wrap a license plate. So I'm going to change my image now so that I can pull in a time when there is a vehicle that's in my field of view. So let me try to get one that's here. So I'll say OK. And you'll notice that as I move this green box over top, I will zoom in for you for those that might not be able to see. Just 1 second. You'll see how this green box is just as the diagram displayed in the configuration guidelines. Each of the characters falls within that green rectangular box. So now this plate detection frame is going to start grabbing plates. If I was to come down here and my minimum height, you'll see that I've increased it or decreased it, and it goes to red. Right? You'll see now as I move these buttons, it's not allowing me to do that because the resolution and the box size, they don't match. So we do have a built-in warning system that basically says, yeah, no, you can't do that, or yes, you can, right? So I could leave that box and adjust it. And if you do have kind of, funny shaped things, you could make those funny shaped too, but more than likely it's just going to be that standard rectangle that you're going to be modifying here. Okay. So now that we've got a couple of boxes that are of the character size plates that we need for detection, and we've got our masked zone created, we can now go ahead and create a rule that alerts and alarms off of those license plates. So again, where we were at was just in the add-on section. We turned on our core ALPR and went to the configuration screen. Now that that's been completed, we're going to jump into rules, which is up here on the top black menu. Rules is where we can start to alert and notify and start to do a lot of the automation with ALPR. So you'll notice I've got an LPR rule that has already been created. Instead of bogging us down and spending a lot of time there, I'm going to just go ahead and open this one up. So here we are within the rule. I've given it a name and I've made sure that it's enabled. Now I've created an event, and that event utilizes that core LPR camera that has that loop video file running. And you'll notice that I've got 3 different options. I can alarm on all license plates, which is any license plate coming through. It marks my timeline and it says this is an alarm. I can alarm only on license plates that are not in a list, or I could alarm on license plates that are in a specific list, which is probably our most commonly used. And you'll notice that the list that I had created, the black list, which is for all the license plates that should not be entering my facility, are listed here. And I've also got that RJ demo license plate list that I did create. But this is a list that I want to alert off of and receive notifications. So I'll select that list. Now that that's done, I can go ahead and select back, which will bring me back to my rule, and I can create an action from here. So always raise an alarm, which is just marking your timeline. There's a lot of different things that we could do, and I call this kind of the rabbit hole of server configuration, because you can spend a lot of time in here and you could get lost if you're not careful. But what I do want to show you is that you could fire specific relays off of this. So I'll add a relay here. And what that allows me to do is I can toggle that relay. I'll tell it what relay number it is, and let's restore it after 3 seconds. Okay. So, and I can select which camera that might be coming off of, which IO module I might be using. If I've integrated with a card access control system, I could fire that relay to unlock a door, open a gate. So I'm trying to paint a picture here to help you understand the automation of using ALPR for parking garages, for low-speed traffic, for executive entry, the white and black list as well. So there's a lot of things you can do within the action sets in automating the processes. So here you also have a lot of different notifications you could do too. Run specific commands, emails, other instructions. You could do OPC communication, run a specific program, which is another one of my colleagues' favorite things to do. Daryl Jackson, he likes to run the programs and write the code. So that's quite nice because it's right there. If you have TCP communication you want to use, you could utilize that too. So again, firing a relay is quite common. Once I read a plate, it's on a whitelist, the gate barrier opens and they're allowed automatic entry into the facility. Or if they're blacklisted, a barrier could close and the siren could strobe as well. Okay, and then you just tell it when you want to run it. I typically run mine all day. If you have a specific schedule, you could create a schedule that's 9 to 5 or after hours and input that here. Okay. So now that we've created those rules, this is why you see this camera marking the timelines, because now that I created the rule and it's alarming off of a specific plate, I'll stop moving my mouse. Down at the very bottom, it might be kind of hard to see, the plate number HUEW 189 is on that blacklist, and it's a blocked plate. So that's what you're going to see there, is it shows up as an on-screen display saying this is the plate number, this is the description of the vehicle, and it marks the timeline with an alarm. Okay. So one of the other nice features about our LPR engines is that we do log everything that we read. What you see on the timeline might just be the things that you're alerting or alarming off of, but what we have here is a license plate log. And let me make this a little bit larger so you can see it. So I'm going to move this up here. It's going to occupy more of our screen. These are all the license plates that have been read and logged into the database. And now they're not just a list, they are actual functional. So if I was to select one of these, it's going to pull up that license plate in my camera field of view so that I could potentially go back and review that video and say, you know, that gray Audi, that was the vehicle that I was looking for, and that HUAI 101 description is the plate. So the license plate log does give you a really good count of all of the plates that are coming through. And it is like our alarm console from yesterday's e-seminar. It's a ticker. So every time a license plate is read, it's just going to go ahead and populate this license plate log. So you have all of that data and content there available for you. So oftentimes people are like, okay, well, that's kind of nice, but realistically, what does that mean to me? Well, what it means to you is that we are logging every license plate capture that we read, even partial plates, and we can define the length of the minimum characters you want to display, or excuse me, to detect. So if you want to have a minimum of 3 or 4 or 5, you can say, these are the minimum characters that I want to read. And by doing so, what that allows you to do is to go into the search license plate log. And this is where the power of the LPR engine comes into play. Let me go ahead and maximize this for you so you can see it better. So just like the license plate log, I can click on one of the plates here on the left. And if I double click those ones, they're going to populate here in this screen. But I could also search for a specific license plate. So I'm just going to search for HUEW 189, which I know is on my blacklist. And I'm going to search all of my records for that. And you'll notice that all of the records that I have are that HUEW 189 license plate character. Oftentimes, security guards are like talking to a customer and they only get a partial plate and they're like, yeah, I know it was an HUEW, but that's it. That's fine. You can go ahead and search partial plates as well. And by doing the search on a partial plate, it'll give you all relative search results. Lucky for us, we've been able to detect the whole plate. But if you didn't and you only got partial reads, HUE, HUEW, it will still pull up all of those records from your license plate log and display those for you here as well. Okay, so that is quite nice. You don't have to know the entire plate number and the alphanumeric sequence. You can just search one or partials of that. The other nice component is that you can define the time that you want to search for. So if you want to search 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, you could do that. If you're using the ARH engine, this is where it really becomes beneficial. I've kind of keyed this up a little bit. So let me see if it works as designed. As I'm going to, not Gibraltar, let's go for Germany. And let's go ahead and go back to the 25th. And then we'll see if we can find anything with a German plate on it. So I didn't have anything. If I was using my ARH engine over the core engine, you'll notice that I would have the availability to search for a region by HUEW. Okay, so maybe it's not defined. So what I could do now is I could say, oh, it's not defined. I didn't know the plate number, but I know the region using my ARH engine. So now that you noticed I deleted the plate character, this is also tagged with the region of Germany in this license plate log. So this is the power of the ARH engine kind of over the core engine, where you get all these added features and benefits that allow you, when you're searching forensically, to find the content and data that is more pertinent to you and that specific search. So that's kind of nice, is to be able to do that region search along with the time and date. You could also define specific cameras. So if you know, out of my system, I've only got 2 cameras that car could have potentially passed through, you could go ahead and select that here. Say this is the only camera I guarantee that car has ever passed through, and you could go ahead and hit search. And then it'll define that for you here with that list, only when that plate was read coming through maybe that left turn lane. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense by searching full numbers, partial numbers, regions. If you have the ARH engine, time and dates, you can identify specific cameras, etc. And the nice thing, just like with Senstar Symphony, is that everything is used right here in this license plate log search window. You don't have to go anywhere else to find the video, pause the video, and export the video. It can all be done right here from this single pane of glass. Okay, so it's very, very efficient when you're going back and forensically looking for evidence that's pertinent to the situation. Okay, so one other thing I do want to show you that that Symphony does have built in is a reporting mechanism as well. So I do have a report. This one hasn't been running that long. I set it up yesterday just so we didn't have to go through the configuration. But to give you an idea, you just name it, give it a camera, and then tell it what lists you want to search or date ranges, and kind of build that report out. So I won't spend a ton of time in the configuration of this, but I do want to highlight the report and just run it and see if we can get any results. So in that report, what you're going to see is that this is the layout of it. I'm not going to go through all the, maybe how many pages we have of it, 83 pages, but it gives you a list of the time and the date, the camera that generated the read, what the license plate was, what region it is. Again, if you're using ARH, you get that data. What list it showed up on. So if I do have a list, it could do that. And then it'll give you a thumbnail image of the actual vehicle that it read that license plate off of. So you could share this list. You could save it in a central repository. You could email it out every day. You could have it come to you if you're a supervisor. There's a lot of different things that you can set up and configure. So if you're not actively searching within Symphony Client, you could just daily have a report sent to you, and then you could say what list. Like, I only want the employee list, right? And if you know they showed up on an employee list and they entered any one of the first 5 parking lots at my Southern California Medical Center, well, they're going to get in trouble, right? So it's kind of a nice way for you just to review the traffic and what's happening within your facility through a reporting mechanism. Okay. So kind of in a nutshell, that is the Symphony ALPR, the 2 different engines, the 2 different ways you can use them. We showed you some of the use cases, and that's what we were hoping to accomplish today. So thanks again, everyone, for attending our second e-seminar on Senstar Symphony LPR, and we look forward to seeing you next week on any of our upcoming seminars. And if you hang tight, I'll go ahead and pull that up so that you can see those listed here in our presentation. Let me get those for you. Thanks again, everyone.